success is changing. It's interesting because I grew up in a very similar situation where my father was the provider, and that's all he really knew how to do.
Yeah.
And both of my parents worked a lot. And so I grew up with the notion that working, being booked and busy was success. And I know you guys can relate, just wearing yourself out in that way, I feel like is not sustainable. And so now I'm reprogramming and redefining what success means to me. And to me, it's about balance.
Yeah.
We can't really sustain balance unless we give men a fair chance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I just feel like men are really hurting. They're sad. And there is a spiritual deficit. And I think that women, at the end of the day, pussy power trumps all. You know? And if you were to say to a man, you know, I'm willing to support you, that could change everything. And really support, that could change everything. But I don't know that a lot of us are willing to shoot in the gym.
Yeah. Show that, not even just support, that unconditional support.
Yes.
Where even if you don't have, I had this conversation with someone who says, you know, I'll unconditionally love you. And I said, don't lie to yourself first and foremost before you lie to me. Because that unconditional part doesn't exist if I'm not attached to you in some form or fashion. Because if I was to go off and be happy somewhere else or do something else that doesn't involve you somehow, with you being attached to that happiness, you're going to want to shut it down. It's not going to be any happiness or thing to it. But
we got to relearn love.
Yeah.
We have to relearn because we don't really know love.
Yeah, it's breaking years, and that's the conversation. You know, my dad, unfortunately, he was somebody who was raised, you know, in Haiti, you know, but it's just pretty much like being in the U.S. here, where it's just like, don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Like, boys don't cry, toughen up, be tough, be tough. Where it's like, no, where now, even with like my nieces and nephews, it's like I'll come down to their size and say, talk to me. Like, emotionally, what are you feeling? And things like that. And people in my family is like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, it's about conversation. We have to reteach a lot of the things that we were taught within itself. I'm not saying they were wrong. Traditionally, they may have worked back then. But the day and age we are in now, we need to have these conversations.
It's killing us.
Yeah, because men, children, relationships, everything is showing up different.
Yes.
And for us to keep up with those times, we have to re-educate ourselves, because you're not going to like tell me how something was done in 1968 in 2021 and I still have to abide by that, especially with all the things that have changed.
I grew up kind of like different because like my parents were like you know, drug addicts, and so money wasn't an option. Like, I was adopted when I was like 6. I'm from like I was born in like a really small town, Youngstown, Ohio. So like, even though I was adopted by my grandmother, I still knew like my parents and stuff. And so like, that's one thing I always like appreciated with my dad, because my parents were like straight gas station begging for money. Drug addicts, like living in like drug houses. It was like bad. Like,
he always showed up for you.
And that's what I say. Like, it was all he had was time. And people will always say like, how do you have such a good how do you have such a good relationship with your dad? Like, how did you have such a good relationship with him? I said, because the times I did get to see him, you know what I mean, which was, you know, in between whatever he was doing, it was all about me. Like, it was like, it wasn't about money. It was about like, you know, like I had more money than my dad in high school, but like from school, I would go over his house and like park outside. Instead of us driving to the store, we would like walk to the store, and he would like fully indulge in conversation. He knew all of my friends' names. He could like when I met back up with him or found him again 6 weeks later, he would remember the guy I was dating and ask me, "Oh, how's Juwan? Like, what's going on? Like, are you giving him a hard time? Or, where's Tia?" That's all he had was the time and the memories. It wasn't about the financial piece of like providing, because all he could provide for me, he needed money from me. So all he,
that's a testament, I think, to his character.
Yeah. So all he could have was, like time, and he showed up every single time.
He did. That's special.
Yeah.